I'm Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang and WashingtonPost.com/weather. Can you believe the week starts frosty, freezing conditions tonight, freeze warning tonight. Then we go to a very warm midweek, maybe a near record warm Halloween. I don't think we have a good chance yet of seeing or tying our record high for Thursday on Halloween, which is 85 degrees at DCA Airport, but we could get into the low 80s. There's a very decent chance we get into at least 80, if not low 80s on Thursday. So it is quite a warming trend. We start after our frosty and freezing morning this upcoming tomorrow morning on Monday morning. Good to see you, the Mad Mao and Aquarian and Anna Marie and Dungendor and Denise and Stuart and Coper and Lisa and Jenny. Thanks so much for tuning in on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, X, and YouTube. I'm Camden Walker for the Capital Weather Gang. We're at WashingtonPost.com/weather. Far above me at the top is my PM updates you can find on our blog. Forecast at a glance showing the warming trend after a very cold morning tomorrow morning. This is our weekly 20-minute chat, Sunday Sunset Live Q&A. And frost and freeze warnings are indicated below. Much, if not all, of the region really going to have the end of the growing season tonight. And Rick, let's check the tropics for you, since that's a great question I've got queued up. It's looking like we are a little active in the Caribbean, and we need to watch that for the medium term as well into November. But a medium probability of seeing some development maybe in the next 7 days in the kind of central Caribbean Sea. So nothing imminent, nothing worth talking about just yet, but something we need to watch during this upcoming week. And then in the medium term, while we're talking about longer term, for next work week, temperatures are leaning with a decent probability of being above average again, and maybe a slight lean toward above average precipitation for next work week. Fingers crossed, we definitely could use the rain. Now, here is kind of the drought situation and soil moisture, which I think most of us, as the growing season has gone until at least tonight, we've been struggling to water our crops, our plants. So the soil moisture maybe more matches our impression. I was arguing in the PM update today that we generally kind of are really begging for rain, even though we're not in droughts. There's only abnormally dry in the yellow here and the shaded in the region. We're very much in decent shape for long-term hydrological and agricultural reasons. We're doing okay in the DC area. West Virginia is still hurting from very persistent long-term drought there. And even the Eastern Shore over near the Delmarva is in more of a drought. We're not technically in a drought around DC in the DMV region, but I think soil moisture is what is reflecting kind of our elevated impressions that don't quite match the drought data. So I kind of was digging, did a little investigating today, and hope this maybe explains if you're in some of the oranges and reds in the region for the soil moisture here above me, that kind of matches closer to what your experience is compared to the drought data below. So just putting that out there. And then pollen for my allergy sufferers. Now that we have a frost and freeze coming in tonight, hopefully things stay under control. Just a little bit, everything's green across the board. A little bit in the trees and a little bit in the mold and mildew spores. But, we're in pretty darn good shape. All right, let's head back to the PM update there at the very top. Forecast at a glance just above me. Frost and freeze warnings are issued for tonight. 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. is the coldest time. Make sure before you go to bed you have those sensitive plants in that you can get in. But it looks like this will end the growing season for almost all of us in the region. This is, it's a little bit sad as we get toward, but we're kind of on time for our typical first freezes in the region, as maybe a little bit early with some of these areas, waiting typically toward November in the yellows in some of the downtown areas and closer toward the bay. So I'd say we were running about on schedule till now, maybe a little ahead of schedule here at the very end of October, kind of a little race to the finish to get our typical first average freeze conditions into the region. So a hair faster than normal for some of our typical November spots in the yellow, but I don't think any of us are too surprised. It's been pretty much above average, pretty warm recently, and it's going to continue to build back that warmth this week. It's a gradual uptrend from kind of cooler 60s tomorrow. I think we still get into the mid 60s for a lot of us, and then 70s on Wednesday and Thursday, if not above 80 on Thursday. I think there's a slight, ever so slight chance we tie our record high on Halloween of 85 degrees at DC Airport. So make sure you're cool in those costumes. There could be just a little a little tinge of humidity with this heat coming up on Halloween on Thursday. Hopefully, some breeziness will help mitigate that little tiny bit of humidity. But it's going to be very warm. It's quite a change from freezing conditions Monday morning to a very warm Halloween. So you can see the animation of cool temperatures and then warming toward the middle part of this week. And then we don't stay, temperatures kind of still stay pretty mild into the weekend as well, but a little cooler. All right. Oh, quick fall foliage check. It is marching steadily toward the I-95 corridor. So hopefully this matches what you're seeing in your neighborhood. North and west of town, starting to get past peak. South and east of town, still some time for that color to kick in. All right, I'm Camden Walker for the Capital Weather Gang at WashingtonPost.com/weather. Let's check in on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X. Thank you, Nuremberg. Thank you so much for tuning in on X. Appreciate seeing you. And first snow, Jeremy, not in the in the cards in the forecast just yet. Liz, I think you probably saw my medium term update for temperatures and precipitation going into November. But let's check that again. We've got kind of a lean, decent chance for above average temperatures, and maybe a slight lean toward precipitation being a little above average as well as we head into November, into next work week. Yes, April, your students might be happy with the warm Halloween. Peter and Eloise, thanks so much for tuning in. And we've got Rick. Time change is next Saturday night. Is that true? Gosh, I think you're right. So I will be looking around 5 p.m. We're going to be at 5 p.m. for next Sunday. I hope I'm wrong, but I think Rick, you're right. That time change is coming next weekend. And Scott, I think we do have. Let's talk about rain. Scott is looking for rain on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, Scott Miles. Let's check precipitation animation this week, and hopefully Friday. Let's pin some hopes. Kind of Halloween late evening should hold off for trick-or-treating time. Any rain chances generally favoring kind of the early morning hours, very pre-dawn hours of Friday instead of maybe trick-or-treating time on Thursday. So we'll watch that for the raindrops, timing, showers, sprinkles for trick-or-treating on Halloween. But so far, Friday is the main rain chance they're coming through with our cold front that leaves us cooler for the weekend. So it doesn't add up to too much, unfortunately. But this could change a little bit. Let's just keep an eye on Thursday night into Friday. That right now appears to be the best time for rain chances. And clouds are a little bit, this is a little bit of a dirty high pressure system, is kind of a funny way of saying stable weather, but somewhat cloudy weather this week as our warming trend gets underway from a frosty, freezing start tomorrow morning to maybe into the 80s by Halloween. We will see, I think, for clouds, I would say highest confidence for sunshine is Monday, least confidence for sunshine is Friday. So I think brightest day could be Monday, cloudiest day could be Friday. And it's a little bit, the data on the clouds is a little bit mixed for the middle part of this week. But I'd lean more brighter than not, with the exception of Friday, might get cloudy again. All right, we have got the PM update here for you, forecast at a glance just above me, and frost and freeze warnings hoisted for the region. The end of the growing season is kind of here, it looks like, for the end of October. Happy Sunday, Kristen. David, indeed, I think you will be seeing me near 5 p.m. Standard Time next Sunday after our Saturday night time change. I cannot believe it is here. All right, we've got Julia on YouTube. I hope you had a great weekend as well. Hi, Liz, and good seeing you on Facebook. And we've got Donna. Hope you're doing well in Iowa. Appreciate you tuning in so much on Facebook. And Jeremy, Christopher, glad it's doing that. And Ruth Elisa, hello. And Emma Joy, I will not promise this is the last 80 degrees coming in the middle part of this week. I would like it to stay fall personally as well. But keep in mind, the only month of the year that has not hit 80 degrees, I believe, is December in the DC area, thanks to human-caused warming climate change. So I will not eliminate 80 degrees from happening again into the future. Ali, thanks for tuning in on YouTube. Hi, hope you're doing well. Let's check Instagram. We've got Nina and Christy and Reverend and Wavies and Inferni and Navy and Jim. Good seeing you. Let's make sure I've caught up on all the questions and comments here as well. Adults and Penguin, thanks so much for tuning in as well. And Reagan, all right. Thank you very much. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Instagram tonight. This is our weekly Sunday Sunset Live Q&A, a 20-minute chat. Every Sunday night, I'm Camden Walker for the Capital Weather Gang. You can find us at washingtonpost.com/weather. Vicky, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook as well. Let's see. This is typical, generally speaking, of our first frost and freezes, a hair ahead of schedule along the I-95 corridor and along the bay. Just sometimes we wait until November. So things were kind of running on average for our typical first frost and freezes, and we're kind of racing to the finish line here along the kind of Tidewater region and parts of the bay. So a hair earlier than normal, but it looks like a end of the growing season tonight for almost all of us in the region, but we warm up. That's the key, is that we go from freezing Monday morning to near record warmth on Halloween, maybe well into the 80s. I don't think we have a high chance, but maybe a slight chance of tying our 85-degree record on Halloween. 85 degrees is the record on Thursday at DCA Airport. Trick-or-treating looks warm, should be dry, maybe a tinge of humidity, but we'll watch it as we get closer. Please stay tuned. A little bit of raindrop timing, subject to change, but overall, we're leaning good. We're leaning good for trick or treating. Happy Halloween, everyone. I wanted to focus on that since you requested the Halloween forecast last week. And fall foliage is marching south and eastward from the highest elevations north and west of town. Lower elevations south and east of town are the last to see typically our colors this year, but we're pretty close to peak color along the I-95 corridor. All right, next is precipitation this week. We still need it. We still want it. Not too much adding up in the next 7 days here below me, but maybe Thursday night after trick-or-treating, fingers crossed, into Friday, we do see the chances for some rain developing. So we'll watch this for you. We are very keen to get some rain into our region. And clouds are going to be kind of mixing with the sunshine in the middle part of this week. Brightest day most likely Monday. Cloudiest day looks more likely on Friday. So we start bright and a little bit cloudy with a mix of sun and clouds in the middle part of this week as we get into the well into the 70s, if not above the 80-degree mark for the middle part of this week, Wednesday and Thursday potentially. So it is a little cloudier this week, and we need this rain. And allergy sufferers are feeling a little bit of trees, a little bit of spores, perhaps. And maybe there's good news in the end of our growing season tonight with the widespread frosts and freezes. Soil moisture has been very low, and I think that's been driving kind of the expectations that we are in drought. But the drought data shows we're not even in drought. We're merely abnormally dry. We just haven't seen longer term effects hydrologically, agriculturally. But I think gardeners and farmers were having to water so much. And yes, we need the rain. But I think this more aligns with our experience in the region recently. So hopefully, with growing season over, we can relax a little bit on the rainfall. Even though yes, we want to fill the coffers, the wells, and the water table before we get to spring, of course, as well. All right, and then looking ahead to next week, leaning above average for temperatures, and precipitation is ever so slightly leaning above average for precipitation next week. So fingers crossed we can get a little more precipitation in here next week. John, Lillian, Renee, and Jen, and John Peter, and the Pots, and MS Sugar, and Andax, and Thomas, thanks so much for tuning in there on Instagram, making sure I've caught up on all my questions and comments on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Thanks everyone for tuning in on all four of our social media channels for the Capital Weather Gang. I am Camden Walker. Here's our website, our blog. Anytime you need us, we're washingtonpost.com/weather. Simon, I love that I can't do that tonight. And Colney, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate seeing you there on YouTube. And David, I hope you do enjoy the warm weather before we get into the holidays. October did go by quick, I agree with you. And Paul, I think you are looking okay for next Friday and the weekend. The weekend, I think, does look clear for your part of Pennsylvania there. It'll be cool, though. It'll be a little bit cool. And social worker on next, yes, the mosquitoes hopefully die tonight. and these widespread frosts and freezes. That is a very good point. Let's put that back up here and think happy thoughts as a one spin positive of the frost and freeze advisories tonight, freeze warnings and frost advisories. The growing season is over. Hopefully mosquito season takes a solid pause. Even though I personally have experienced mosquitoes in all 12 months of the year, hopefully they can die tonight, and they might come back a little bit on Halloween when we get near or above 80 degrees as well on Thursday. So that's very possible. Happy Halloween, NBM. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube. Simon, thanks for tuning in on YouTube. And Elizabeth, I think we're about to release this week our November outlook. That's great. I'll try and have that next week. April, you're most welcome. And let's see what other Jeremy. Uh, Jeremy is predicting Christmas Eve for the first measurable snow. It's not a terrible guess. And Vicky, glad to see you this evening. And Stephanie, the leaves are beautiful. Let's take a look at the fall foliage here that's marching from northwest to southeast through the region. Those peak colors are finally getting toward the I-95 corridor. So I am glad that Patty indeed is seeing those leaves, and Stephanie is seeing the leaves in the Shenandoah Valley. All right. Patty, thanks so much for tuning in. And so far, I haven't seen any evidence of cooling from any stratospheric aerosols that were released by a volcanic eruption. All right. Simon, thank you so much for that. Kind words. And Elizabeth, we'll have that November forecast for you on Capital Weather Gang at WashingtonPost.com/weather before I think the middle part of this week. We will get that to you. And Steve, hello from Culpeper. Very autumnal day. I wish it could stay that way. And I appreciate your report that your fall colors are near peak. Good to hear that. This is kind of verifying this estimate for today. Shiny JM, McEveen, and Ariana, and Cloverina, and Deem, and Denise. Thanks so much for tuning in on Instagram. I'm Camden Walker for the Capital Weather Gang. We're at WashingtonPost.com/weather anytime you need us. Catching up on my questions and comments on all four of our social media channels tonight: Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram. I think I have caught up now. I appreciate all of you tuning in for our weekly Sunday Sunset Chat. We do this for 20 minutes, and I'm on the air another 3 minutes or so. So we're just reiterating there's frost and freezes ending the growing season tonight. So bring in any last plants that are potted that might be sensitive to a freeze and frosty conditions tonight. We do warm markedly this week and fairly quickly toward the 80-degree mark in the middle part of this week. Ever so slight chance we are tying on Halloween our record high temperature of 85 degrees. Ever so slight chance. I don't think a good chance. But we could get above 80 degrees for Halloween and sweat in our costumes just a little bit for trick or treating. Maybe a tinge of humidity in the air, but hopefully some breeziness to help us get a little bit cooler in those costumes. So let's see. Typical first frost and freezes are relatively on time, a hair ahead of normal for along and east of I-95 tonight. We typically wait till November for some spots in the yellow here. But overall, the region has experienced a fairly typical end to the growing season. The temperatures animated below here are warming from even mid 60s. We rebound quickly tomorrow from freezing toward the mid 60s on Monday alone. And then we eye the 80-degree mark Wednesday and Thursday, cooling back down into the 70s Friday. I think 60s are looking pretty good for the weekend as well. And about 85 on Halloween, not a high probability, but an ever so slight chance. I think a decent chance that we see at least 80 degrees on Halloween, if not the low 80s. So we we will have a warm Halloween, maybe near record heat for our Halloween. Mohammed and Brickell and CSG and Bike Star, thanks so much for tuning in on Instagram. Marie, you're most welcome. And David, I am going to go as a weatherman for Halloween. I love that as a costume idea. And Sylvie, thanks for tuning in on X. Patty, thanks for tuning in on Facebook. And David, I know 20 minutes for our weekly Sunday Sunset Chat has flown by. And Paul, the leaves are changing more quickly. It happens very quickly when you're waiting. You're waiting. It's like a watch pot never boils. And very good to see all of you on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and X. I will have one more minute here. Let's make sure I have covered that. Well, let's see. Let me get that down. We've got the precipitation animation for the week, not adding up to too much in the next 7 days, unfortunately, but hopefully after trick-or-treating, stay tuned for rain chances on Thursday night, Halloween night. Should, as of now, wait till after trick-or-treating time, but it's subject to change. We could then, in the pre-dawn hours of Friday into the daytime Friday, hopefully get at least a tenth of an inch, quarter inch of rain. Fingers crossed. And then clouds are kind of coming in the middle part of this week as well. I think a pretty darn brightest day of the week, decent confidence for Monday. And then I have decent confidence for a lot of clouds, I think, on Friday. So we start bright and cloudy. Middle part of the week has a mix of clouds and sun. So this is a little bit of a, even though a stable regime overall through Thursday or so, it could be a little cloudier than we've seen recently. And we do need the rain. Soil moisture kind of more matches our recent experiences, even though we are not in drought. The yellow shading is merely abnormally dry. I think a lot of gardeners and farmers are responding. Their experience is kind of more matching the very dry topsoils we've had in the region. So no long-term agricultural or hydrological issues, but it has it has been annoying to say the least to have to really watch. I think some of you planted grass seed as well, and that has needed a lot of watering, a lot of care. Allergy sufferers, hopefully after frost and freezes tonight, take out pollen for the trees to a good extent, fingers crossed. Maybe mosquitoes too, right? We were talking about earlier. We're in decent shape with low across the board, just a little bit of spores, a little bit of trees. And then yes, the drought conditions here below I think are going to persist for the time being, but luckily, with the growing season ending, we don't need much rain to speak of in the soils just yet. Leaning with decent probability above average temperatures next week, leaning slight probability for above average precipitation next week, and tropics are fairly quiet. One area in the Caribbean has some moderate chance over the next week's time frame to develop, and that's kind of the preferred area into November. That we'll keep a slight eye on as we get toward the end. I can't wait for the end of hurricane season on November 30th. PM update there at the top. That's my PM update. Available at WashingtonPost.com/weather. Forecast at a glance from a freeze tomorrow morning to 80, if not better than 80 in the middle part of this week. Maybe near record heat in the low to mid 80s on Halloween. I hope not. Slight chance, though, we do tie our record high temperature on Thursday on Halloween of 85 degrees at DC Airport. So bring in those potted plants tonight if you have not already. The growing season is over, so there's a chance we don't see any more frost and freezes from the National Weather Service. So keep that in mind. It has been good keeping you apprised of things. I hope your plants and crops did okay this year, despite some watering needs for sure. And I appreciate all of you tuning in tonight on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. I'm Camden Walker for CapitalWeatherGang.com. P.S. Mackenzie C. James and Joe Martz and Sweetie and Pidodio and Catherine and Heather in Cargill. Thanks so much for tuning in on Instagram. Many of you I'm not even naming. And David and Paul, I appreciate seeing you very much. And Charlene, I think I'm near 5:05 p.m. Standard Time next week. I think we have the time change on Saturday night, so I will see you a little after 5 p.m. Standard Time, an hour earlier, next Sunday night. And the Roundtable, thanks for tuning in on X. And Catherine, you're most welcome. And Ruth Lisa, next Sunday morning is our start of Standard Time. You take care, everyone. Have a good week. Enjoy the weather after the freeze. A very cold start tomorrow. It turns into a pretty mild and enjoyable week, though getting a little warm by Halloween, I would say. Take care for now and have a good time trick or treating if you